Hey guys, and welcome back to another tutorial. In today's tutorial we're going to be talking about something that is somewhat of a difficult subject to explain, learn, and use, and that is regular expressions, also known as regex. Regular expressions are a language on their own, and while I can go through a very exhaustive tutorial, I'm just going to introduce you to them because the regular expressions can take a tutorial of their own, at least 45 minutes to 2 hours long to just sort of explain this. And what it is, it really is its own language within Python. And it's a way to start extracting data from text, essentially. It's really useful when you're doing things like looking at tickets, for example, or log data, or any kind of unstructured data, and you want to go ahead and pull some kind of information out of there, assuming that it follows some kind of a pattern. So this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the types of commands regular expressions have, and we will go through some of these today. But really, when you look at how regular expressions are broken down, they're broken down based on what I would call some fairly basic commands. And in those basic commands, you're going to be going through things like identifying strings that start with certain characteristics, strings that end with certain characters, any kind of matches for any kind of wildcard matches or specific characters that you're looking for. We're going to look at escape characters as well. But then also when you start looking at some of the more numeric things, you want to be able to match specific numbers and all that other kind of stuff. So we're going to go over this. We're going to scratch the surface a little bit with this, just so that you get an idea of what regular expressions are and how they work. So what I want to do, if I just scroll up to the top, I wrote a simple objective here. Is we've got some text that I just wrote randomly. So it says, today I went shopping and spent $300 on electronics. While there, I signed up for a contest that asked for my phone number, and I just made up a random phone number. My address, this is a random address, folks. Please don't try to send anything here. And finally, an email address, and I really hope I can go on vacation. Now, this is very unstructured data. If I wanted to go in and actually start pulling out some information, I would literally have to read every single page and go and pull certain key data out of here, and I don't want to be reading pages and pages and pages of text. This is where regular expressions become very helpful, because I can start identifying certain patterns within this data and then start pulling out the text accordingly. So what we're trying to do here is, I'm just going to take this and actually move it to the bottom. And what I'll do is I'll put all of these are probably the ones that you're going to use most of the times. There are others that you're going to use, and you can always Google them, but I'll put these in the description just so that you guys have access to them and you don't have to scour the internet and look for them. So what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to print a sentence where I'm able to do something like this. So if you can imagine, this is just a three-liner text. If you're looking at text data, which I've mined in the past, and we're talking thousands, if not sometimes millions of rows of data, which has similar patterns, is because, for example, if I submit something in a forum and it's submitted in a text document, the pattern is going to be the same for the most part, but mining that text can be a challenge. Or if you're looking even at Twitter data, for example, there's so many different types of raw data sources that you can be looking at, and regex is just one way of using it. Now, there are a lot of modules within natural language processing which do similar things, and really, I've been using more of those than regular expressions, just because regular expressions can be a bit tedious to learn and use. And natural language processing is a lot more simple, but we're going to leave that for a different tutorial. So how would I go about and start doing this? So let's go over some of the basics of regular expressions and how they work. Now, in order to use regular expressions, I actually need to import a module within Python, and that's called import RE. And what that stands for is import regular expression. And that's going to give me all the different methods I need to be able to extract the information from this. Now, there are various types of different methods that I'm not going to go over all of them, but I'm going to go over the ones that are most commonly used, and that is re.search and re.findAll. Re.search is going to return some kind of a boolean saying that it's true or false. So if I tried searching for some kind of data in here, it's going to say, yeah, it exists, or it doesn't exist. Whereas findAll will actually look through the entire text and actually return to you the value that you're looking for. So today's tutorial is going to be more focused on the findAll, because I want to be able to use those answers that I get back and store them in a variable and use them somewhere later on. The basic composition of a regex statement is really going and understanding some of these commands. If you look at this, something like \s means match a white space character. So that's basically any character that is white space, essentially. If I do S, match any non-white space character, so that's everything including numbers, letters, and so forth. And then if I just want W, it's going to give me a word character. And if I want W, it's going to give me a non-word character. So there's actually a pattern here, and that is as soon as I use a capital, it's really the opposite of whatever the small s is in this case. And so there's one for digit. So I'm going to go over and show you how to extract the email and then sort of explain how this works, because that's probably the best way to do it. So I'm going to create a variable called email, and I'm going to set that equal to re.findAll. And when you see findAll, it actually says what's the pattern, what's the string, and are there any flags that you want to pass through. So we're going to go here and say re.findAll. So what I've done here is I'm taking this method findAll from this module re, and I'm storing the answer to whatever I put within this parentheses, which is going to be my search criteria, and storing that as email. So let's go ahead and take a look. So when I look at this data here, what I'm looking for is some kind of a pattern. And the email one is the easiest one to find because it has an @ sign in there. And so what I want to go do in this text is I want to say, go through all of this text and tell me where there's an @ sign. And so what you're going to do, and I'll explain what this is in a second, and then I'm going to say print email. And when I hit print, oh, and I forgot to define text, because what I'm basically saying here is search through this text, which is this variable here, and return to me the @ sign. It's going to say, all right, I found an @ sign. So there is an @ sign somewhere in this. That's good, because that tells me that there's potentially an email address in here as well. Now the way I'm going to work this out is I'm going to say, all right, now that I've located the @ sign, I'm going to see what I can find to the right of it, and then what I can find to the left of it, up to a point where I actually hit some white space, and then white space on this end. So what I'm saying is, I found the @ sign. So tell me everything now. Let's go search for everything on to the right of it that doesn't have any white space. So when I go up here and I search for all the characters here that include a non-white space character, and what that means is I want to actually return some kind of text. So S is clearly not white space, so it should return that. And it's going to keep going until it says, all right, I hit some white space and there's nothing beyond that, so I need to stop. So if I were to go on to this side here, and I would say \S, because that is basically saying any non-white space. Let's see what it actually prints. So it actually prints an @ sign and an S, and that is basically printing this here. But wait a minute, I actually need everything up until the white space. And so this is where the plus comes in. What I need to do is I need to say, okay, go ahead and match all the non-white space characters, but match either one or more. So I don't want you to just return one. I want you to keep looking and see if there's more. So if I go ahead and add a plus sign here, it's going to return sats @. All right, so now I've taken care of everything from the @ sign to the left of it. Now I can go ahead and do the exact same thing to the right of it. So let's see what happens. So now I've basically said, all right, to the right of it, print all the non-white space character all the way up to the point where you hit some white space. So it's going to keep iterating through all of this, which is what the plus does. It says, all right, email is the non-white space, M is non-white space, and so forth. And it's going to keep going until it hits this period right here. And so now it should print my pseudo email address, which it has done right here. Now I want to get rid of this period here. Now there's another really useful command within regular expressions, and that's called substitute. So I can do something like email2 is equal to re.sub. So I'm saying invoke the regular expression module. Now I want to use the sub method rather than the findAll method. And I'm going to say something like, and I didn't explain what this R is. I'm going to explain this in 1 second. All right, so let me go ahead and explain what we've done here. What I've done is define email2 as my new variable, and I said let's invoke regular expression substitute. What it's going to do now, so what this R basically means is that I want to treat everything that is within my text document here as raw text. And what I mean by that is this. I can pass something like, for example, text is equal to, and so what's going to happen is it's actually not going to parse this document properly. It's going to say, wait a minute, you actually have some characters in here, or I can put something like, a period, or I can put a hyphen, I can put whatever I want in this text. Because something like, for example, like a period is a reserved word within regular expressions, which is right here, I need to tell it, you know what, don't treat this as an actual regular expression. Take this as the raw text. So for me, putting an R in front of it will convert this into a raw text format, and so it won't actually treat this as part of the dictionary or as part of the commands within a regular expression. It'll actually treat it as a period. So you always want to put that R in front to say that everything after that within these brackets is raw data itself. So let me go ahead and explain what's happening here. So initially we went ahead and we printed my email address, my pseudo email address, and I've got this period at the end, which drives me nuts. I don't want that in there. So what I've done is I said go ahead and invoke the regular expression and substitute anything that's a period. So in this case, I actually do have to go ahead and invoke \period because I'm actually substituting something in here. This isn't raw text I'm looking at. This is actually a search criteria. So I'm saying don't go ahead and use the match any character thing. I actually want you to go ahead and search for a period somewhere in this email address. Go ahead and search for a period. But I only want you to search one, which is why I have the $sign at the end. And the $sign says that this character, period, right here, is going to is the end of the string. I need to end my search criteria with a $sign because it basically says that is what my string is going to end with. So my string now is this entire thing within these quotes. This is my new string. So what I'm saying is go ahead and look for a decimal or a period, whatever you want to call this. Make sure that within my string, I'm only finding the one that ends with the period. So I don't want to find this period here. I just want to find the one that ends with it. And so then what it's saying is replace this period, this is what the RE stands for, the substitute, with just an empty space. So if I went ahead and did something like hyphen, 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 you will see my email address will show this. The period is gone, but it'll show hyphen, hyphen, hyphen. So all I'm saying is take that period and substitute it with nothing, just a blank spot. And so then I'm going to go ahead and pass in this join.email. And the reason is, in order for me to substitute something within a regular expression, it needs to be expressed as a string. When I actually took this email variable and I did this find all against it, it actually converts it into a list. So this is a way for me to take this email, which was a list, convert it back to a string so that this can go ahead and do the search against this string email. It'll look for the period at the end and then replace it with nothing, which is how we get here. Hopefully now you're starting to understand why regular expressions is a bit of a complicated subject to teach and cover off and use on a daily basis. And I'll be honest with you, I use it sparingly. I use it every now and then, but it does come in handy sometimes to use regular expressions. So the next item that we want to go ahead and we want to pull out of this is, let me go ahead and pull the amount that was spent. So we'll call it amount underscore text. And we'll say that's equal to re.findAll. All right, so now how would we go ahead and find something like this? Again, I want to start with some kind of a pattern, something to identify it by. So the first thing that comes to mind is, hey, let me go ahead and search for a $sign. Now remember, if I just put in the $sign here, it's going to think, hey, wait a minute, you're looking for something to end with something before this, so I could put whatever I want before this. But that's not the case. I actually want to find a true $sign, so I have to escape it with a backslash. So now if I did something like this, print amount text, it's going to say, all right, so you know what? I've gone ahead and I found you a $sign. But now I know that whatever amount I'm going to spend, the numbers are going to be to the right of that $sign right here. So I need to go ahead and say, you know what? Go and do a search after this $sign and find all of the numbers that match some kind of a digit. So I'm going to say one digit, but then I'm going to add the plus right after that to say one or more digits. So when I go ahead and say after this $sign, that comes after this up until you hit some kind of white space. So when I do that, it actually prints $300, which is what we wanted. Hopefully you're getting the hang of this. Now this is one of those where it's you do it once and hopefully it just as you put more documents through it, the format should relatively stay the same, so you wouldn't have this issue all the time. All right, next one we're going to look for is phone number. So we'll say phone is equal to re.findAll. So what pattern do we want to look for here? Well, we know that when we look for a phone number generally, at least in Canada and the United States, starts with 3 digits, the next 3 digits, and then it's going to have 4 digits at the end. So we can actually put that pattern within here as well. So I can go ahead and say, find me a scenario where I've got digits. Now, instead of using the plus operator, because it's just going to go and find everything, I can actually use these curly braces and say, find me something that has 3 digits. And then, I could have a space here, I could have the hyphen here like I do, I can have an underscore, I can have whatever. Then I'm going to go ahead and say, find me anything that matches any character except a new line. So it could be anything at this point. So I'm going to go here and say, after these 3 digits, a user can enter anything. But then after this, I've got another pattern of 3 digits again. And I'm going to say anything again, and then another pattern of 4 digits. So this is my 3, 3, 4. And then when I go ahead and hit print phone, should give me an error, of course, because I forgot to pass in my string. You look at that right there. It's giving me a phone number. Pretty cool. And I can change this to whatever I want. I can have this as, 9520. And as soon as I run that, it's going to go ahead and give me that as my phone number. Last but not least, this is a tough one always, the address. Now this one works because typically in, again, the US and in Canada, your address will start with some kind of a number and end with either a zip code or a postal code. And right now I've exemplified a zip code just because it's a little bit easier. I can do it with a postal code as well. It's not a problem. Because a postal code ends with a number, so it would work anyways. You just have a slightly different pattern. So what am I going to be doing in this case? I'm going to be saying, hey, listen, I want to find something that has a number and something else that has a number. Now, because a zip code is 5 digits, I can actually start with this. And I can say, go ahead and look through all of this content in here and find me something that has 5 digits. Thankfully, a phone number doesn't, so we're okay there. But find me something that has 5 digits. So we're going to go ahead and create a regular expression for that. And we're going to say address is equal to re.findAll. So now I'm going to say go and find me something that has 5 digits. And so when I print address, it should return to me. Oh, and I forgot to pass my text. So it gives me back the zip code, which is what I wanted. Perfect. So just give me back 90210. What I need to know in this case is now I need to go ahead and work backwards and get all of this data until I hit another number. So I can now put in my pattern here, can go down and say, okay, so it ends with a number. It actually starts with a number as well. And in this case, it could be 1 or more, because I don't know if the address is 1, 100, 150. I don't know what it is. So hang on. So let's just go and use one number here for now. But now I also need to know, how am I supposed to get all of this stuff in between? So it starts with a number, it ends with 5 digits. But I also need to figure out, how am I going to go ahead and get all this stuff in between? So to do that, it's quite simple actually. You scroll up to your thing, your little handy dandy dictionary. And in this case, you want to match everything that's a non-digit. You want to return something that is literally words. And so the reason why I don't want to use this, the reason why I don't want to use this, the word characters, is because I also want to return back all these commas here as well. So what I'm saying is return everything between here and here that is not a number. And for that reason, I'm going to use \D. And so let me just pull this all back together. I'm going to get \D, but I get an empty list. And the reason why I get an empty list is because there's more than one character here, obviously, right? So I have several characters in between, so I need to go ahead and add in my plus. And when I do that, it will return back the address for me right here. 1 Python Circle, Beverly Hills, California, 90210, complete with all the different commas and all that stuff that should be in here as well. Now, what if I had an address that was 10? Does that change anything, I wonder? It does. It's actually showing, hey, wait a minute, Now it's actually going all the way up to the 0 and stopping there. So again, to quickly fix that, you add in your plus sign, and it should pick that up as well. And now you have 10, Pythonic circle, and so forth. And I can put in now, 1,000 here, or let's just put in 1,000. And it'll pick that up as well. 1,000 Pythonic circle, and if I go back and just put 1, it'll pick that up as well. So that is how you would go ahead and start extracting this stuff. So use cases. You can imagine a resume. A resume is a very good use case where you can go and look at certain patterns within a resume. Typically speaking, the address is up on the top. It has a similar characteristic to this. Phone number is up there as well. Generally, the first line on the resume would be a name, and you can always say, as long as there's a first and last name, treat that as a name. And this is how documents are parsed. So another use case I'll give you an example of is, I have a team where we're reading hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents. And these documents, for the most part, are standard contracts. And so I can actually go in and invoke some kind of a regular expression in there and say, for every single contract that gets printed, give me the contract value, give me the phone number of the company, give me their address, and give me some other information that I want out of there as well. So rather than having to go through and have my team read hundreds and hundreds of pages of contracts, you can literally automate that process by building it once and then running it over and over again and reaping the benefits over time. So again, this was a really quick introduction to regular expressions. If you're interested in learning more about this, I encourage you to look at some other tutorials online as well. You can literally spend days and days on this topic because there's so much to go through, and I've literally just scratched the surface. So hopefully you like this, and if you do, please comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.